In this lesson, we're going to learn the jumping X-fist pressing block in an X stance. So another movement that appears in pattern Tae, late in the pattern, that a lot of students wonder what it is used for. So there's a movement late in the pattern where you jump forward and you do an X-fist pressing block. And then, of course, you move through and perform another technique after. But students don't understand what they're doing when they do this technique. And the book confuses matters by showing it as an application being protection against a kick, for example, a front kick. But if you think about it, that's nonsensical, because why would I block a kick that is never going to hit me? So why would I jump into a technique that I have to block? Right? It doesn't make any sense. So if somebody's kicking here, like this, why would I jump into their kick to then have to turn and block it? Right? That doesn't make sense. That's not what you're doing with this technique. What you're doing is you have an opponent that is injured, they're crouching, somebody that is on the ground coming back up to their feet, but they're slumped over like this. And so what you're doing with the technique is you're coming forward, jumping and pushing down on the back of their head and neck. On their back, on their neck, on the back of their head, you're pushing them down to the ground and then continuing on with the next technique. So it's basically a way to get a wounded opponent out of your way or clear a path so that you can then move on and engage the next opponent. So that's what you're actually doing with this technique. So you jump up, you shove down onto the person, and then you move through into the next movement. That's why you don't stay in that position. You're simply transitioning through. So you perform the block, and then you move through into the next technique. So if you're looking at it from the side, right, this is what it looks like. And then I go through into the next technique. So I'm only in that position for a brief second, just long enough to shove that opponent to the ground and then move through into the next movement. But that's another technique that appears in pattern Tae that we don't practice as part of foundation movements, but you need to understand it. You need to know this technique, how to do it, and what it's used for. And that's what it is, low X block or X-fist pressing block in an X stance, sometimes called a twisting stance. But X-fist pressing block in an X stance.